Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Take Back My Brain. I am your host, Lori Hammer, and today I have with me Dr. Dawson Church, and we are going to have this phenomenal conversation on EFT and the brain and the capabilities of our body and our brain. And so make sure that you share this episode with somebody who needs it today. Okay. So, welcome, Dr. Dawson. Thank you for being here.
Lori, it's a joy to be here. Thanks for having me.
I would love to know because I've actually read Genie in Your Genes and I really like the book and I read it a long time ago. So I was like my assistant found you. She's like, you need to interview this guy, Dr. Dawson Church. I'm like, oh my gosh, I read his book like I don't know how long ago. And it just opened up my mind to a whole new, world. Like, yes, this makes so much sense. This is what I believe because there's so much like just hidden inside of us that we just don't know that we have the power, the capability to just, experience life on a whole new level. So thank you for your work and what you're doing.
Genie New Jeans was almost 20 years ago,
Yeah.
and I've revised the book two or three times in the meantime, but I'm working on a new revision, and I'm amazed, Laurie, that the underlying principles of the book are still exactly the same as they were back
Yeah.
then, that our thoughts, our feelings, our beliefs, our emotions literally turn genes on and off, and that was true back then, it's true now. There's just more evidence for it now, but the idea that you're actually like you're an engineer changing your own gene expression, what genes are on, which genes are off, just by your thoughts and emotions, to me is still an absolutely awesome and marvelous fact.
I know, we're just created so amazingly well. So let's get into that. So first of all, how did you get into, this field of science and working with people and helping us change our brains?
I initially began looking at quantifying the effects in the body and in the mind on elevated experiences and also traumatic experiences.
Ah,
So my early studies were people with PTSD. The very first one I did actually was with Marshall University Medical School way back around 2004. And we looked at veterans who were coming back from Afghanistan and Iraq and looking at their levels of PTSD. And
mm,
then the researcher I was working with then had developed a protocol that was able to cure them in 5 1-hour sessions. And I thought that was just blow
that's
away
crazy,
fantastic.
right?
Like,
That can't happen.
I know, I didn't believe it. It's like 5 sessions, you gotta be kidding me. But sure enough, their nightmares were gone, their flashbacks were gone, their intrusive thoughts were gone, their hypervigilance after only 5 1-hour sessions. And that really caught my attention. So we went to Washington, D.C. to talk to the VA. They weren't at all interested in knowing about this.
Which is so sad to me, like, because there's so many
I
people
know.
suffering.
Yeah. They were pumping veterans full of drugs like Risperdal, all kinds of
Yeah.
nasty substances that didn't do them very much good and had a lot of bad side effects. And and again, the whole idea that we can use a simple, non-drug, energy-based therapy to shift our bodies was seemed like just like too outside of our paradigm. But I did more and more and more research, and then eventually began to look at not just how do we get ourselves out of PTSD, how do we bring ourselves into elevated spiritual states? And that's where I began to find such interesting and relevant research on the brains of, for example, Franciscan nuns who've spent their whole life in deep prayer and contemplation. Their, their brains change not just a little bit, their brains change a lot. And
Lots.
so the idea that your spiritual practice is actually changing your body, changing your brain was just
Mm.
a huge insight. And now we're mapping how it does and how much it does. So the reason I do this work is I find that beyond fascinating.
It is beyond fascinating. Just like prayer and meditation changes your brain. Well, that I don't know. I think it makes sense. But like the world, it's kind of like woo woo, like how can that really happen? So can you dive into the science a little bit for us?
One of the interesting tools that we use in research is an advanced EEG
Okay.
and also high resolution MRIs. And high resolution means that just like the screen of your cell phone has become a lot clearer and a lot more high res over the last 15 years, the technology behind MRIs has gone from being sharp. And we can now map a single neuron and its firing and its
So
changes. And so
amazing.
we're using these advanced tools. So when, for example, we take a person who has in a state of high anxiety, what we see on an EEG, hooking them up, is that the emotional brain, the limbic system, is highly active. It's all lit up in red. And so they're anxious, they're stressed, they're depressed, they're emotionally triggered, and that reflects in brain activity. We then had them start to do things like breathing or like acupressure. Acupressure is really, really powerful. Just
Hmm.
rubbing or tapping on acupressure points really calms the body down. Even just hugging yourself like this, just a simple little self
Yeah.
hug,
Yeah.
that starts to change the information flows in the brain. And we watch that highly lit up limbic system get calm in just a few minutes. So the way that these work is that you are using these spiritual practices. They're sending calming signals to the brain. And when the brain gets those calming signals, it realizes that that memory you have that's driving you into anxiety or stress or depression is not real. It's not the actual stimulus that counts right now. What does count is that physical stimulation, that breathing, whatever else you're doing to really calm yourself. And once you break the association between going into a trauma response as a result of that thought, when you break that association one time and the brain calms down once, usually it stays calm. So you
Mm.
ask the person later on, 6 months later, like I asked one veteran who had horrendous experiences in Iraq, ran into him 6 months later. I said, think about those terrible times. How are you now? And he said, I'm amazed, but I'm emotionally calm. So that's what changes.
That's amazing. So can you dive into a little bit like the acupressure points? Because some people, one, they don't think they really exist, or if you tap on them, how does that actually change something? Does that make sense?
They really exist. If you take a little device called a galvanometer, it's an instrument that measures the galvanic skin response and the charge and the resistance at different places on your skin. You can run a galvanometer around your face and it'll just start beeping like crazy when it hits an acupuncture point. And so these are
Uh-huh.
real. I do this in front of big crowds sometimes. It's a lot of fun. Take just a volunteer from the crowd and I'll take the galvanometer, you run it across their skin, nothing happens. Hit an acupuncture point, it starts flashing and going crazy. So the real points, when we stimulate them, that sends little electrical signals through our connective tissue on our body. And that stimulus of the connective tissue is really calming to the brain. And so you'll take somebody who's in high anxiety, you'll do the acupressure stimulation, and then the brain very, very quickly gets calm. It's kind of like getting a good hug or
Mhm.
any kind of physical stimulation. I mean, if someone just puts their arm around you, you feel better. It's
Yeah.
that physical sensation of safety. That's why you're rocking a baby that's crying and the baby calms down. You stroke its face. You're actually stroking all these acupressure points.
Ah,
And if you look at the brain, you'll see that the high beta waves of stress and emotional disruption go away, and very calm waves of alpha, theta, and delta expand
mhm,
in the
mhm.
baby's brain. So the physical soothing is really meaningful to the brain in a way in which just words alone are not.
Right. So when my kids were little, well, especially my son, he loved me to just like trace, his face. And then, I didn't know all about, what you're talking about today, but it was just so calming to him. And we just like, we would just do all these little tracks and now I know like, these are the points. And um, it's just so cute because kids just kind of intuitively know. And I think we adults get in the way of our intuition, the way God created us to, start working on these things. But um,
Well, we get enamored of thought. We think we
yeah,
can think our way out of every problem,
it's
and
so
a lot of
true.
problems you can think your way out of. But when it comes to emotions, you can't think away an emotion. If I feel upset or triggered, then try to say, "Don't have that negative thought." Like, how well does that work out for most of us?
Right,
Not
right.
at all.
Not at all. Like, yeah, like good try. I know, and I think even in our spiritual world, I'm a Christian, and so we pray, and all those things. And sometimes you're praying or, you're praying out loud and you don't feel anything change is because, sometimes we just get so stuck. Like, because like you said, you just can't talk away any emotion, and that's really good.
Yeah, and so, for example, there's a book called EFT for Christians about tapping for Christians, and it tells you how to layer this in to your prayer life, for example. And so you want to get yourself out of stress, and then when you're feeling calm and resourceful, that's when you pray, and that's
Mhm.
when your heart is really centered and full. That's powerful. And so you want to learn those kinds of techniques. I also want to mention a study done by Baylor University where I did my undergraduate work, and Baylor looked at Christians and found that they were looking at health, and they found that generally speaking, if you believe in a loving God, if you
Mhm.
believe in a God of love, then that has a salutogenic effect. It actually extends health and lifespan.
Yeah,
So people live longer if they are feeling nourished by a loving God. If people believe in a punishing God, and like some of the fundamentalist churches when I grew up, it was like all hellfire and brimstone,
right, right.
shorter lives,
Yeah,
shorter lifespan, more medical procedures at the end of the lifespan, more likelihood
interesting.
of being hooked up to a life extension uh, device when you're brain dead. Well, I mean, a lot of negative quality,
Wow, that's a
negative
fascinating
quality
study.
stuff, yeah, associated with believing in a punishing God. So, for goodness sake, there are both these strains in Christianity.
Yeah.
Grab the loving God version and use that one.
Yeah, definitely for sure. Wow, I didn't know about that study. That's fascinating. Because I mean, the Bible says, as a man thinks, so is he. So, life and death is in the power of the tongue. So if we're speaking negative, we're thinking negative, our life is definitely going to be negative for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And then people, get into all kinds of other worries about feeling as though they're not worthy and as though God is punishing them. There's a lot of self-talk that can go along
Yeah.
with that. And it really impedes your quality of life. So,
Yeah, for sure. So when somebody's going through, you were talking about the PTSD with the veterans or, somebody else going through PTSD or even anxiety. Everybody seems to have anxiety lately, and I help people, overcome anxiety through, nutrition and amino acids and, working on their identity and stuff. But I've not incorporated some of the things that you're talking about, and I would like to. So can you let's talk about anxiety. How does this help your body to kind of rewire that anxiety pathway?
yeah, anxiety is interesting. Anxiety, your brain is going to get that stimulation, and your emotional brain is likely to be highly active. And it may be something physical like an amino acid, and it can be something that is psychological, like a memory or
Mhm.
a worry or a fear. And so, either way, you need the proper support. And that's why we also tell people if you're using energy therapies, energy techniques, if you're doing things that really work for you, like tapping, make sure you don't neglect the physical support as well. You do need
Exactly.
both. And so, what you want to do is find a way of calming yourself. And that's going to vary from person to person. For some people, it's going to be a breathing technique. Others, it's going to be time in nature. But whatever really works for you, experiment with different flavors of it, and then have your own like emergency kit of things
Mm.
that you do. Like my wife and I, for example, whenever we feel tension in our day, or say we're having a discussion where we have different points of view, if
Hmm.
there's any kind of rise in emotional temperature, we start tapping on acupressure points. We tap
Oh,
and then we talk. We've learned never start blabbing and venting before you're tapping. Tap first and then talk. So that's one really powerful way of
I love that.
contextualizing your stuff. So you
That's
want to
got to
make sure.
improve marriages out there.
Absolutely.
Wow. And just teaching your kids to do that so that they can express themselves in a calm, in a calm manner, but just even I would think when your brain is calmer, you can process things better. So and everything doesn't seem as dramatic and traumatic. Um, when that. So I think that teaching kids to do that would be amazing as well.
It changes their futures. We've taught this
Yeah.
now in so many schools. Right now, I've been doing a project where we're training teachers in Ukraine to do it with kids, and
Hmm.
they're in a war zone. They're terribly traumatized, many of
Yeah.
them, and we're finding that they can calm down, and then they can learn. They can feel resourcefulness. They can find their inner core, which they can't do when they're all strung out because of the stress of being in the war zone. So, yeah.
Yeah.
It, I mean, we've done this with kids after school shootings. We've done this with kids in crisis. We've done this with kids in prison.
Wow.
And when kids have this resource early on, they know that calmness is possible, and that's like
Mhm.
an anchor point they carry forth in their lives. If they know whatever happens to them, they can find that inner space where there is safety, there is security.
Yeah.
That means they're resilient when they're faced with life's problems. And there will be problems for them later on, but now they have that anchor point of well-being. So that's really the crucial thing, to have that anchor point early in your life. When you do that, then everything shifts.
Wow. That is so true. I love that. I love that a lot. What's the difference between like EFT and like neuro linguistic programming? And there's just a lot of things out there that work with the limbic system. Could you unwind that a little bit for me?
Yeah, so the commonality is that they are physical. Things like NLP has a lot of focus on your body, being in your
Hmm.
body. Somatic experiencing is like that. Polyvagal theory has you focus on interoception, physical feelings. And generally speaking, physical therapies are more effective at calming stress than mental only therapies.
Yeah.
If you're doing a mental only exercise, it's like, don't think of a white elephant. Well, if you're told not to think of a white elephant, all you can think of is white
White
elephants.
elephants. Yeah.
And so mental only strategies they have their place in therapy, but they can't really effectively address fear as much as the physical sense of safety does. So all of these things that are have a somatic element to them, that are at the level of the body, breathing exercises, taking deep breaths, centering breaths, heart coherent breaths, tapping. Again, all of these approaches have as their common theme that they put you back in the body. If you watch somebody, for example, who's having a dissociative episode, then they leave their body. They're going
Mhm.
off somewhere else. And that is really handy if you're a child being abused or
Sure.
the time to leave your body. Your body's not a safe place to be. But an adult response is to stay in the body and then feel empowered there. So dissociation is a huge issue. And if you can learn to just breathe, that tells your body, okay, this is a terrible situation. It feels bad to even remember it. And the fact that I'm breathing means I am alive and I'm functioning and I'm still here. So these somatic therapies are really powerful. There are lots of different ones. The tapping is the fastest one I've found so far. I use that
Okay.
one. But anything that keeps you in your body while you either experience a fearful event or remember one is going to be helpful in processing that and turning it into something that just happened to you rather than a living cause of anxiety or fear right now.
Wow, that's amazing. Can you like walk us through a little bit of an EFT?
I'd be happy to.
Okay.
Lori, one thing is my screen is frozen. Am I frozen on your screen?
You are actually, yes, you're frozen on my end too. So I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Maybe turn your video off and then turn it back on.
Let me do that. Hold on a sec. Yeah, because my settings are all correct. There we go.
Hey, there you go. Now you're
I
back.
don't know what happened
That's
there.
okay. We'll edit that out. That's fine.
I can sit still in meditation, but not that long.
Not that long, right? At first I thought, well, he's just very still. And then I realized, you're not there.
So here's a quick way of seeing how effective a somatic intervention can be. Think about something that bothered you in the last 2 weeks, an event with a person, preferably an interpersonal spat of some kind. Could have been a disagreement with a fellow worker, family member involving other people in the last couple of weeks.
Okay.
Okay, so don't tell me what it is because we aren't using a cognitive therapy, we're using a somatic one. It doesn't really matter what the mind thinks, it's what the body is experiencing and perceiving as stress. So, for yours, Laurie, and for everyone listening, give your event a very brief title. Think of it as a movie,
Okay.
start, middle, and end. What's the movie title?
Cooking.
Cooking. Okay, so this is great because, Laurie, nobody knows what your event was. I didn't know what it was. The audience doesn't know what it was. And we can work with somebody in EFT not having any idea what bothered them. That's important because some people have such triggering events they don't want to talk about them. So a neutral term, a neutral movie title like cooking. And then the other question is, as you remember the event, score it on a scale of 0 to 10, with 10 being the maximum
Mm,
emotion and 0 being I'm fine, no emotion.
7.
7, okay? Okay, you're really in touch with your body. Where in your body do you feel that?
I can feel it here in my jaw and my neck and behind my eyes.
Okay, jaw, jaws, neck, behind eyes. Yeah, I'm writing these places down so I remember. And if you're listening to Lori and I, please write down your number and your movie title because we find in our studies that people's numbers drop so fast they don't believe how quickly they went down to a zero. So
Mm-hmm.
we have them write down those numbers. So now, just simply eyes open,
Okay.
staying here, just feeling into this moment. Notice your breath and feel the natural rhythm of your breath going in and out. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now imagine the breath is flowing in and out through your heart. Your breath is coming in into your heart, out through your heart. And now let your breath slow down as much as it feels comfortable to you. Usually people settle out at about 5 seconds or 6 seconds in, 6 seconds out for a slow breath. So slow that breathing down. And now relax your tongue on the floor of your mouth. We tend to hold our tongues very rigid.
Mm-hmm.
So relax your tongue, keep it relaxed. And now tap over here on the side of your hand. Feel the breath flowing in and out through your heart. Keep your eyes open. Keep your tongue relaxed. And Lori, thinking about cooking that event. Feel the sensations in your jaw, behind your eyes. Keep your tongue relaxed. And as you're listening to Lori and I, just notice your body sensations, but stay focused on your event. Really stay focused on that event. And feel your breath in and out through your heart. Keep your tongue relaxed. And now, keeping focused on the event, tap on the top of your head with the flat of your hand, focusing on the event and your breathing. So the event happened, and your breathing's happening now. Take two fingers, tap where your eyebrow meets the bridge of your nose. The event happened, and I'm breathing in and out through my heart. Tap on the side of your eye. Keep your tongue relaxed. Think about the event again. And tap under your eye, under the pupil of your eye with two fingers. Tongue relaxed. Feeling your breath. Tap under your nose. Really focus on the event. Tap under your lower lip. Think about the most emotionally triggering part of the event. Tap under your collarbones with both hands. Feel your breath flowing in and out. Keep your tongue relaxed on the floor of your mouth. Keep your breathing slow. Focus on the most triggering component of that event. One more time on the side of the hand. And then relax. Stop tapping. Tune back into your event and get your new number. So whatever number you were before, what's your number right now thinking about the same event? So
Probably
Lori, what's yours?
2.
Two.
Like I was even having a hard time like focusing on it towards the end. Like,
With my kids, when they were little, I'd tap with them and they'd lose interest about halfway through the tapping routine. It was like, oh, Dad, go away. I'm done. I'm good.
we're done now.
So again, all body-based stuff. We didn't do any therapy there. No, I didn't try and convince you that the world will still go on despite your bad experience. I didn't try and do any kind of elaborate conceptual reframing with you. Now we can do all of that when we train practitioners in clinical EFT, and they have a whole lot of techniques they use beyond the
Sure.
simple ones like this. But just the simplest of tapping routines can make you calm.
Yeah. So when you're doing this, can you, if you're working with a practitioner, say you have an autoimmune disease or, like a brain tumor or something very significant physically in your body, have you seen over the years that when you're incorporating this into therapy that it's effective for eliminating those things?
Yeah, it's effective to the degree to which the stress related, and
Fair enough.
everything is stress related. When I'm doing live workshops, like I teach at several places live, like Omega Institute, we'll have a whole big room full of people, and I'll ask for volunteers. I'll ask people what they want to work on, and I'll pick somebody with fibromyalgia, or I'll pick somebody with a bone spur, or something that's really physical. Like
Yeah.
they'll tell me about a car crash. Like I've had this pain ever since the car crash 12 years ago. It's a physical pain from that bone fracture. It's like, great, let's come up to the front and work on this together. Because clearly this is purely physical. Surely just energy work is going to have no effect on it
No
whatsoever,
effect. Yeah.
right? It's amazing, Laurie, because I start tapping and their numbers go down and often they're down to a zero after that. Even fibromyalgia, there was a clinical trial of people with fibromyalgia. Symptoms so severe they couldn't function anymore. And it
Mm.
found that one third of them recovered completely doing EFT, one
Wow.
third didn't recover, and one third recovered partially. So yeah,
That's so
reversing
effective.
physical
Mm.
ailments. Yeah.
The power of our nervous system.
Absolutely. Yeah, and even strongly encoded physical things. There's one lady who was on one of the videos on our website, and she had an operation on her left biceps muscle. And ever since the day after the operation, it had been tight and painful. And so it had been 6 or 7 years. Every day the pain was up there. And so it was like really clearly physical. It was right off the operation, never went away, traced back to a certain day, certain event. And we began to tap, and then I asked her to give it a name. I said, "What's the name of this pain?" She said, "Fred." I thought,
Fred.
I said, "Well,
Okay.
have there been any Freds in your life?" And she said, "My ex-husband."
Oh. Okay.
So it goes do some tapping on Fred over here. So we're tapping away on Fred, her ex-husband, and some of his his habits, and she went way down to a zero. Then I said to her, "Okay, now you couldn't move your arm very far before. Just move your arm now." And she moved her arm. She'd regained full range of motion in
Wow.
her left arm, no biceps pain whatsoever. So it's just a miracle the way, we have these things now that can really free us from pain we otherwise would carry around for life.
Right. And it's so simple. It's so simple. It's just tapping into your own body, but literally tapping into your own body to, I mean, just to release what shouldn't be there to start with. We're not meant to hold those things.
We're not meant to hold those things. We were designed to release them. And
Yeah.
we just need insight. We need a little bit of a nudge sometimes to do that in our body then. Our body's meant to be in homeostasis. It's meant to heal. And if it's not healing, something's in the way. Find out what's in the way and release that.
I love it. That's so good. And that's what we teach like in nutrition, like remove the interference. And when you remove the interference, the body can heal, right? So it's the same thing in any situation, body, mind, and spirit.
And you find a lot of uh, people in science who really are um, they think of themselves as being um, fact-based or skeptical
Hmm.
or rational, logical left brain thinkers. But when you start working with the body, when you've done enough research, you pretty much start to have faith because you realize this thing we live in, this body of ours is so marvelous. It's
So
totally beyond
marvelous.
our ability to comprehend.
Yeah.
And we human beings have figured out a few little bits of it, which is good. But I mean, it's just a mystery how magnificent it is. And if it's not healing, there's something in the way. We can find out what that is, remove that, and then suddenly that healing flows again.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, thank you, thank you so much for being here today, for sharing all your wisdom, your knowledge, for doing the demonstration. It's been a pleasure and a privilege to meet you. So thank you
What a
very much.
joy. Yeah, likewise. Thank you so much for having me. So appreciate that.
Awesome. Do you want to leave the audience with anything else?
Oh, just fill your life with happiness and self-love. I read a study recently about laughter, and the researchers were so cool. They followed people around for days and days and days and measured how often they laughed. They also did this with babies, and they
Okay.
found the average toddler laughs 300 times a day.
Really?
Like a 2-year-old granddaughter, and she's two, and she's just laughing at this, laughing at the. She was just staring the other day at the pollen drifting down from the trees, and just wow, it's the
Right.
coolest
That's so
thing.
exciting.
So, I mean, we're children with minds filled with wonder. The average adult laughs 20 times a day. We've
Mm,
shut down 95% of our laughter by the age of 15, 25 years old.
wow.
So just find your joy, find the love, do what it takes to shift any kind of emotional or spiritual issue that's standing in your way. We are meant to sing and dance through life. And when you are in that place of a child, when you're laughing at how wonderful the world is, how marvelous it is every day, your whole life starts to shift. So I encourage you to not take yourself too seriously, fill your life with love, know that you're here for a purpose and that life can be utterly magnificent when you surrender yourself to your destiny. So please don't accept anything less.
Awesome. Amen. I appreciate that so much. Thank you. And thank you everyone for listening. God bless you, and I will see you in the next episode.